Welcome to Enchanted Moonlight Readings, and I have a very, very, very special guest with me right now. You might recognize him, Edwin Leonard.
Yes, hello, people. Some of you may have seen me on my astrology channel. My name is Edwin Leonard, and I do YouTube astrology videos. So, anyway, glad to be here with Leslie. And what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about astrology and the death of Selena Quintanilla.
Quintanilla, with
okay.
every due respect that she is owed. We are doing this with the best of intentions and not any disrespect to her family or her fans. I, as you all know, am a die-hard fan of Selena Quintanilla. And I just, like everybody, I just feel like there are so many unanswered questions. Why it happened? Could it have been prevented? Who was this person that did this to this beautiful young rising star? Had she not gone that day? I have so many questions. I'm not going to overwhelm Eddie. I call him Eddie because we're more like friends now. So I'll just let him get started. Should I go ahead and say who Selena is, or?
Well, if you want to talk about who she is first, and then you want to talk about that, and then I'm going to go into some things in her natal chart first, which could give some indicators, astrologically, of how she may have died, and how this, sadly, it seemed to be very eerily accurate. A lot of some indicators in natal chart to indicate who and who would be involved and how this was going to transpire, so sadly.
So, just a little backstory. Selena Quintanilla-Perez was a young 23-year-old Tejano rising music star, and she had befriended somebody. Actually, this lady befriended her father first, and then slithered her way into Selena's life. Selena started trusting her, and then Selena kind of went down a rabbit hole with this lady, which tragically ended her life. So she was signed to EMI Latin. She was doing a crossover music album. At the time, she was mainly an English speaking that was her main language, and she learned Spanish. So, and that was her prominent, singing style. So, and she did wonderfully in that. So, but anyway, that's like the backstory. If you don't know who Selena Quintanilla-Perez is, I highly suggest you Google her and go and listen to some of her music. And without further ado, here's Eddie.
Well, people, what I want to talk about first, again, so staying before, I'm going to talk about some natal placements that Selena has had in her chart, and how that may have corresponded, sadly, with the manner in which she passed. I think one thing that really stood out to me is when I'm looking at her 8th house, and the 8th house is associated with death, of course, in astrology. She has in her chart, she has Virgo, something very basic I'm going to get into first. First and foremost, the sign on the cusp of the 8th house is Virgo, and it's at a fairly late degree. And the thing about this is, when you have, if somebody is murdered, it could indicate that sign on the cusp of that house could be somehow associated with the murder. In some cases, it could be a Virgo sun, moon, or ascendant person, or one that embodies those characteristics. In this case, it was a sun in Virgo, a person by the name of Yolanda Saldivar. And another note on this, she also has the Black Moon Lilith and Pluto in late degrees in Virgo. Yolanda has her sun at a very late degree in Virgo, I believe like 26 or 27 degrees. The Black Moon Lilith in astrology can indicate somebody that could figure a very provocative or prominent role in one's life scheme, but could also be a formidable enemy at the same time. Black Moon Lilith in Virgo is in the 8th house of death. And sadly, going back to Yolanda has her sun in Virgo. Black Moon Lilith in Virgo could indicate somebody with a Virgo sun, moon, or ascendant person, or one that embodies those traits, could figure prominently in one's life. Sadly, it was in one's death. It's also conjunct Pluto in the 8th house. So this was something that had, it does sadly had a lot of sinister and nefarious energy in it. The 8th house is also the house of shared resources in astrology. So this person figured prominently in a shared resources situation with Selena. She was, I believe, was a manager. She was appointed like manager of some kind of boutique.
Yeah.
That
Selena made her manager. Like she was like the boss.
Okay.
Of the boutique and the boss of the fan club.
Right, and this was
and she had access to all the bank information.
And this was a person who figured prominently again in a shared resources situation, and being talking about the Black Moon Lilith in Virgo in the 8th house again, the fact that conjunct Pluto, it's not surprising. This person was somebody that was obviously somebody that murdered Selena. In this case, Uranus in the 8th house also can indicate a death that could come very unexpectedly, very unusual circumstances, something that was very unanticipated and something very unpredictable. Another thing too, and natally, she has the ruler. Selena had the ruler of her 8th house in the 3rd house. And that could indicate in some cases a death that might occur through some sort of short journey. Now, I believe what happened was when Selena went to confront Yolanda about the missing funds, she was this is when the death was involved with it, because she was shot shortly after this, after she confronted this person regarding this, and this was done through just a short, quick journey to this person's, I guess it was her residence, Yolanda's
hotel
room. And also, the ruler of that 8th house is Mercury, and the sun, Selena's sun in Aries makes a conjunction to it, so it's no surprise that this death was very much in the spotlight, basically at this time, sadly. So this is something where you could see a lot of this energy right there, how it could very well have corresponded, sadly, with Selena's death. So, and also too, there's really the only other thing, as far as a natal placement, I thought was very interesting. Well, it's actually what I wanted to get at was that you look at another thing that I noticed as far as her natal chart goes for Selena, is that she has Mars in the 12th house of endings, Mars in Capricorn. So it's not really surprising that an ending were to come through some kind of 12th house is the house of endings in astrology. So it's not surprising that an ending came through gunfire, and it was somebody that was prominent in her career, in her business, being in Capricorn.
And it's aspecting the 6th house in Cancer.
So it's opposing the health and the employment.
Orcus or whatever.
Yeah, I'm not sure honestly what it means, what the Orcus means. I've not studied up on that really that much. But the fact that it opposes,
it's part of the Pluto tribe,
right? I think a lot of it though is that you have the Mars making an opposition to that. I think really what all that really means, it's not so much related, I don't think, to as far as the gunfire and the shot that Selena received. It's just the simple fact that a lot of her energy that she might have shown privately may have been in opposition to her work life to some degree. It shows that she had a more active, maybe private life than maybe people had realized. And this could have been, being Mars being in Capricorn, just could have been some just general mundane work that she had been involved with privately, or there might have been private business matters that she had to deal with a lot that might have dominated her time, that opposed maybe people in her daily routine. So, but
I'm trying to find Lilith. Where is she?
Well, the Lilith that is...
We don't have her here.
No, right? I have it here. It's in her 8th house. That's what I was talking about before, the Black Moon Lilith in her chart.
Like, where is it?
But anyway, so the next thing really I wanted to get at, as far as her... now, actually, another thing in her natal chart, I almost forgot about this, that she has the ruler of her 10th house Selena's the ruler of her 10th house in her 8th house in her natal chart. So sadly, this indicated a death that was going to be very publicized, and she actually might have received, I don't know if she became more famous after the time she died, but it definitely was something where it got a lot of global attention and worldwide attention. She was a world-renowned singer, so it's not surprising she had that placement. This was something that when she died, that it was going to be something that got a lot of attention, notoriety, and recognition. And the thing about this too is that another thing that I wanted to talk about next is that some transits that she was receiving, that Selena received at the time when she was murdered. Now, the one basic transit really stands out to me is that she had transit Mars in Leo in her 6th house at the time of death, making an tight opposition aspect to her ascendant. So it shows the anger being very well directed toward Selena, very personally, and
prideful.
And the thing about this is that when she was shot, the bullet had at least pierced Selena's upper back. Upper back is associated with the zodiac sign Leo. This was done by somebody that was an employee, given it was in the 6th house. So, interestingly enough, this had just shortly transitioned, this transit, from the 7th house of open enemies into the 6th house of employees. It's almost like a revelation way where this enemy came out as an employee at this time, and this was somebody that actually wasn't a true open adversary, but maybe sadly Selena did not see this at this time coming, and when she confronted Yolanda about this, I'm sure she had no idea or conception that this was going to go down in the manner that it did. There's really one main... Well, there's actually some other transits I wanted to get at. Another basic transit Sun in Aries, was making a conjunction to Selena's natal Chiron at this point in time. So that could indicate wounds to the physical body through something very volatile, being an Aries gunfire. In this particular case, something through weapons. The weapons are associated with Aries. Gunfire is associated with the zodiac sign Aries, because Aries, as you know, is ruled by Mars. So those are some ways that at this time where I can see how these transits sadly manifested in this terrible, tragic death of a very powerful, world-renowned singer, and with Aquarius rising, I'm sure brought a very eclectic style to what she did. Okay, go ahead.
So had she not gone that day, had she just, of course, I have trouble even like saying that, because Selena was like a very fiery person, and she was missing documents. And so she was like, because April 16th or April 15th, I'm sorry, is
Oh, the
the
16th
tax.
birthday, yeah. Go
Well,
ahead, the
yeah, but
tax,
that's
yeah.
the
Right.
taxes.
Yeah,
They're due. And
right,
so this is the 1995 where she was like writing all this down for her brand new business.
right,
And she was like determined to get these documents, these missing documents.
right.
And so, um, let's say that she didn't go that specific day, that she went the next day. What would have happened? Would
I think
she
it
have
still could have. I
survived?
think it still could have happened anyway because you would have still had transit Mars in that aspect to it. The transit Sun still would have been very close to Chiron. The 1 day difference would not have made um, much difference in this outcome. I think that and you have to look at also from a perspective or vantage point outside of astrology. If somebody is that adamant, that determined to do something and to where they are going to do something the first. Generally, it's going to be done. The only other thing that could have been possible, I mean, we know obviously some possible transits, but there could have been something if this had been delayed, this mating, that maybe somebody would have caught wind of what was going on in terms
Oh.
of in terms of what this plan might have been in terms of killing Selena, and maybe at that time that's the only way it could have been prevented because there would have been maybe more time to think about things. I think what happened was Selena did something very impetuously, very impulsively, being a
Yeah.
sun in Aries, and if she might have just
Her
waited.
husband was still asleep when she left.
The transit, see what could have happened then if the transit Sun at least had moved away further. Maybe like by the time you're like at a week away from this, I think it may have been averted because the thing is there's also when you have transit Sun and Aries in this case hitting Chiron, that could be suffering consequences, repercussions through impulsive behavior, impetuous behavior. So if you had the Sun starting to move a little bit away from Chiron, it could have maybe given her a little bit more time where she would actually be thinking things out a little bit more thoroughly as opposed to actually acting impulsively at this point in time. Those are some
But
things.
she still would have gone though. She still would have tried to confront her in
Yeah.
another way, right?
There could have been there could have been something where she might have been confronted. Could it have been maybe somewhere where she would have been maybe at a place where there would have been more witnesses and maybe it would have at her actual business where it wouldn't be in a private confrontation. So this is something.
So she kind of was cornered.
It's not really surprising going back to her natal Mars in Capricorn in the 12th house. The Mars can be about combat, confrontation over people in business, career-related matters, and the fact that this was in the 12th house, it was something done that was very private, where it was between her and Yolanda. That it's not really surprising the way this went down. Just looking at the natal chart. But there was something I wanted to. There was one more main transit I want again. I was telling you about this earlier, Leslie, with the transit of the full moon, which was about 2 weeks before this murder, and the full moons can be about revelations and unveilings.
2 weeks before this happened, Yolanda went and bought the gun, and then a day before she did it, she returned the gun and went and got it again. Okay,
Okay, so what happened was on March 16th, 1995, there was a full moon in Virgo at this time that took place. Now, what happens is, when you have a full moon in astrology, you're going to have the moon will be opposite the sun at the time. At this time, the transit sun in Pisces was very close, exceptionally close to the second house cusp of Selena in her chart. Now, when you have other transits that transpire at the time of the full moon, they could be intensified and amplified because they are taking place at the time of the full moon. This was very close proximity to the second house cusp of Selena, the sun in Pisces at the time. This could have given some illumination and shed some light, very strongly, very powerfully, so to speak, on duplicitous, deceptive activities with her funds at this time. Now, I understand Selena was likely told about this well before this took place, but maybe this shed a little bit more light on Selena personally, where she actually was beginning to accept what was actually happening, where this was revealed and unveiled to her. Transit, when you had, and then when the full moon was in Virgo at the time, very late degree, like 26 degrees about at this time, was very close, very close to the 8th house cusp of Selena's chart, the 8th house cusp of shared resources at this time. So this was something where this was perhaps also a disclosure to Selena, an unveiling revelation regarding very strong frugality, very strong parsimonious energy in connection with shared resources, that this money was indeed being taken out at this time. And again, this was very close to her natal black moon Lilith in Virgo, and Pluto giving more sinister energy to this at this time as well. And by that, and again, as I stated before, the black moon Lilith could represent people that figure very prominently, play provocative and prominent roles in our lives, can also be very powerful enemies. And this shed light on this person at this time, and I believe that's how it manifested and panned out. Being in the 8th house, again, somebody that was involved in her shared resources. And what happened was, at this time, this activated a basic, pretty much a mutable T-square configuration in Selena's chart. And when you look at the midpoint of Selena's chart, she has the moon in Sagittarius, in almost at 29 degrees, almost at that full culmination of energy at this time. And when you have that, when you're talking about, in this case, the full moon in Sagittarius in the 11th house being that apex, being that focal point of the T-square configuration, that's the point of overemphasis, overcompensation. It could even be a very strong emotional reaction, given that this is the moon at this time. You're talking about responsive energy. The moon in Sagittarius can be very blunt, to the point of demoralizing others and demeaning them and not mincing words. She might have really laid into her very verbally at this time. In the 11th house of friends, likely saw Yolanda as a friend at this time, and this is where this energy took place. Now, it didn't happen. It may have not had. She didn't confront her, I understand, at the time of this full moon. But this could have been where the decision could have been made that she was planning on doing. Remember that Selena has Mercury in Taurus retrograde, so there's more very methodical, very really reviewing things before they're actually said, and making sure that those words are going to count. Being in Taurus, it's very prudent mental energy, and really thinking, making sure that the words are going to do something that will make sure it would accomplish something, and in the fact that it's retrograde, that it was a lot of mental review, I'm sure, prior to her confronting Yolanda regarding this. So.
And he doesn't know anything about Selena, by the way. You just laid it all out there. And it's so true, because 2 weeks before, like I said, Yolanda went and purchased the gun and made that decision. And Selena was in the process of okay, I'm seeing your true colors and you're not going to work for me anymore. This is over. Our friendship is over.
Right.
It was more of a friendship for Yolanda. An obsessive friendship. If I can't have you, no one else will. And it's just, I
want to touch up on the sin. That's another thing. I'm glad you brought that up, because it made me think of the synastry between Yolanda and Selena. In Selena's chart, Selena has Pluto and Pluto at Virgo, 27 degrees, and the black moon Lilith in Virgo, 24 degrees. Yolanda has her sun in Virgo so around 26 degrees, 26, 27 degrees, somewhere around there, at or around that degree, those degrees. But anyway, this could be a very fixated, obsessive connection. This could have been something where, given that we're talking about the sun in Virgo with Yolanda, she could have been very focused on the sexual energy and the erotic sexual energy of Selena, because the black moon energy is like Mars, but it's more erotic, and Pluto can be very sexual as well. So there, I mean, to me, it tells me there was likely a sexual. Really, there's where Yolanda was very fixated and obsessed with Selena, very sexually, being in Virgo. It's probably Yuck. It was somebody that really just was flawless. It was somebody to her. Remember that Virgo is a sign connected with perfection, flawlessness, precision. She likely saw Selena as somebody that was just sexually just perfect for her, flawless. That there was nothing wrong. It would be a perfect match for her, and that's how. And that maybe added to the obsessive and fixated energy, I'm thinking as well. So.
Oh my gosh. No. I mean, and it's so weird that you say that, because at the time after it like happened, there was all these rumors that Yolanda was saying that Selena loved her and called her mom, and there was all these rumors about that, about this, and I don't have a problem at all with, like, if, gay, if you're gay, whatever, like, it doesn't matter to me, but she killed her. Like, that to me is like just icky energy right there. It's like, ew, like, take your stuff somewhere else, like, because like she ended such a beautiful rising star. For what?
Yeah.
For what? I just
to
don't
avoid
get it.
paying money.
Yeah.
And she wasn't going to do it, and she was obviously nefarious and low down. And we're going to look, the next one we do, of course, it's going to be on Yolanda's chart, and see if we could see any murderous tendencies, and look at some transits that took place at the time of Selena's death. Now, we don't have an actual birth time for Yolanda, but we're going to improvise and do like a solar sunrise chart. We're going to have the sun as very close, if not exact, to the ascendant position, whatever we can calculate and get it into as close as we can, the sun to the ascendant position, and we'll do the chart based on that calculation, and we'll look at that in another point in time. So that'll be the next one. We will talk about and delineate and discuss.
Absolutely. And if anybody has any idea of when Yolanda might have been unfortunately brought into this world,
yeah,
I'm sorry. I don't have any sympathy for this woman. She can like rot in her cell forever. She's up for parole in 2025.
Yeah.
30 years after she ended the life of a beautiful.
She still hasn't admitted it to this day.
No.
Says it was inadvertent. I shot her by accident.
Yeah, now she doesn't even say that. Now she's like, I won't discuss that. I'm like, and then she looks totally different now. It's like she looks younger. It's weird.
Yeah, I was wondering if maybe Yolanda might have Taurus rising, because Taurus, just a little bit from the build, the appearance a little bit, and I felt that Taurus, I was telling you about, in a very negative manifestation, will often, if they're going to kill, it could be over something monetary, not wanting to pay. I understand Virgo could be as well, because Virgo is probably the most frugal of the signs. Mm-hmm. Taurus is very money related. Wouldn't be surprised if she has an Earth descendant as well, given that she was this took place over something of a monetary nature, I believe, and that's why I believe that's why she's
silencing her throat.
Yeah.
She silenced Selena's Mercury Taurus.
Yes, I was just looking at it, and then the retrograde it's not surprising at some point it was going to go back and not be able to, sadly, to speak, to say, it just really,
So
it's
Selena
just a
was always
terrible,
fated
it
to
just,
like die young.
it almost, well, it's more, it's really was more with the transits, I think, as if you want to look at astrologically, more with the transits in contrast to the actual, um, the natal chart. That's what I believe. I mean, she has Uranus in the eighth house that could indicate an unanticipated, unpredictable death,
With
which
Pluto
could happen
Lilith.
before something could happen before your actual time.
Mm-hmm.
So there can be some indicators to look at where it was at least one which indicated that something could happen before she would just live her regular actual life, her full life. Sadly, that it could have been. It could have been cut short that way, and just it just again, it's a very, I would say, very tragic ending, and it was sad that's happened, and she's in a better place right now, and
I think she's probably reincarnated already. Maybe.
I mean, I don't rule that that possibility out. I mean, anything's possible. She could be in a better. That could be a possibility, or maybe she's in a higher plane right now, and maybe in where she's happier and she's in peace.
You know what? Yeah.
Right now.
That's true.
So the thing.
Anything that you want to close off on?
Well, the thing about this too is that I think looking at what had happened at this time of one other transit I guess I wanted to get at. I didn't think about it. I'm looking at it now. It reminded me. She had transit Pluto not far from her natal Neptune when she passed, and what that is to me that indicates suggests where if a person were to pass, that could be due to some kind of betrayal from somebody, because Neptune is connected with betrayal, and this was somebody that did betray her actually. So that's one of the rulers of her second house of money. The second house is Selena's second house is Pisces. So of course the two rulers are Jupiter and Neptune. One of them, it being Neptune transit Pluto, was very close to it at the time, so something monetary related. And sadly, she also has Venus in Pisces as well, natally, and they sometimes could show gullibility in monetary matters and delusional energies. I think sometimes she put these people that she entrusted with her funds on a pedestal, sadly, and this was to her detriment. Even Pisces on the second house cusp can suggest that. So that's how it sadly.
She trusted her wholeheartedly, and Yolanda was even in Selena's sister's wedding with Selena. They were bridesmaids. There's pictures, and
how could somebody just turn on them like that and be supposed to be so two-faced? I mean, it's just
what would make someone like that?
Well, we'd have to go look at Yolanda's chart the next, so we could analyze that to some degree. Now, speaking of Virgo energy analyzing, right, being Yolanda being a Sun in Virgo, ironic, but she had a lot of dual energy, can do that. I remember the main thing I remember about Yolanda's chart. She has the Mars in Gemini. I believe it was at 29 degrees if we looked at it last time. That would be the first culmination.
OJ had that, Mars and Gemini.
So that could show a lot of dual energy right there. And in somebody in Mars and Gemini in a fuel rage could show maybe in some cases true colors of who maybe they were, because Gemini is the sign of the twins. So it's interesting the way that worked out. And Mars at 29 degrees, of course, Mars is at that full culmination of energy of anger at that time. So Mars can either be a surfeit of energy. When you have 29 degrees in astrology, it could either be a surfeit of something or too little. In this case, maybe it was too much. And what it tells me that maybe Yolanda might have had. She might have been she may have been bisexual and had, kind of went both ways.
Which doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. But I'm saying it indicates that she could have had the sexual obsession. I'm just trying to reaffirm. Could have had a sexual obsession with Selena is what I'm saying.
Yeah. I understand.
Right.
I just hold Selena on a pedestal, and I just want to conserve
Right.
her memory.
Right.
And
Yeah.
Selena was, you
Right.
know, a beautiful human
Right.
being, and this icky person just
Yeah.
slithered her way
Right.
into her existence, and sadly will now be forever connected to her,
Right.
which she does not deserve.
Yeah.
And so that's sad.
But as far as that, I was just obviously
No,
talking
yeah,
to talk about Yolanda's chart and her Mars and Gemini.
I
And
know.
yep.
It
So
just
it
confirms a lot
yeah,
of what was being said at the time, though.
Right.
At the time, when all of this happened, like we can go back and review on YouTube. I'm sure there's a whole bunch of videos. There's books even written that Yolanda was in love with Selena, and so and Yolanda will say now that Selena loved her too.
Yeah, that's what she will say. But you know, whether we believe that or whatever the truth is, it's something we may never know. And it's not. It's at a point right now. It may not really be. I mean, I don't know if that's really that important. The thing about it is it's the fact that we understand though that Yolanda was probably obsessed with her more than anything. And even if Selena did have any, she felt anything toward Yolanda, it wasn't as intense. It wasn't as intense, I don't think, as what Serena felt toward. What Yolanda felt toward her. So that's.
I believe Selena probably loved her as a friend, and was like, you know, like loving toward her, like nurturing toward her and mothering, you know. But as far as like being in love with her, no.
The fact that Selena's Pluto was very close, a conjunction to the sun of the sun position of Yolanda, that could indicate that maybe the only obsession that Selena may have had, as far as Yolanda goes, was supplying her with her basic wants, which was employment and making sure she was taking care of that.
Because after she got caught with embezzling, she was cut off. The family cut her off from like having access to the bank accounts or the credit cards anymore. She would have no more dealings with money.
Right.
And they were going to go to the cops. And that scared her.
Yeah.
So, I know we can go on forever and ever with this. We've already gone like almost 40 minutes.
Yeah, I think we definitely talked extensively about the astrology and the death of Selena and this, and we're gonna have more another time when we talk about Yolanda's chart.
Absolutely.
And see if there were any indicators natally and with transits that on her end, which could suggest that something like this were to go down. And so, and
we'll have to look into that, and that'll be interesting and for another time.
Okay.
In another video.
All right.
So
we will do it in a future video.
Thank you, Mr. Edwin Leonard, everybody. The great, the one, the only. Thank you so much. Can I give you a hug?
Oh, yeah, you can. And thank you for having me. Thank you for having me here.
I'm hugging you.
And thank you for having me here. And I was honored to be on your channel, and I'm looking forward to seeing it when it's uploaded and to view it. And
honestly, the pleasure's all mine.
Well, thank you. All right, everybody. We'll see you later.